Hi Crafty Friends, this is Jen from Katahdin Crafts and welcome back to my channel. Today is my first official video as a team member of Not Too Shabby. I am super excited to be part of this team. Jamie is extremely nice and I absolutely love all of her products. For today's card, I am working with Not Too Shabby's original stamps, and the main one is Sprinkled with Love, which is that really cute cupcake and all the sweet treats you see there. And then I also am bringing in a sentiment from Bouquet of Happiness. Not Too Shabby Shop also has their line of papers, and this is frosted and tufted. And I absolutely love this. I am a pink girl, and then the pink added with the chocolate color is just amazing to me. I had so much fun, as you can see throughout this project, that I ended up doing another project that I will have a short video on this week as well. Look at all these wonderful patterns. And another thing that I love about Not Too Shabby's papers is the thickness. It's nice and thick and it has a coating on it. So they're just absolutely fabulous. So I'm showing you all the different patterns in this particular pack. And I am going to use quite a few in this card because I'm going to make my own slimline background. Okay, the first thing I did to start my project was decide which papers I was going to use for the patterns because I wanted to do the cupcake wrappers with the papers, on the papers. So I just stuck that in my MISTI, the paper, and right now I'm rubbing on my stamp because it's a new stamp to me. So I take off some of that tackiness by rubbing it a little bit, and then the ink will adhere a little bit better. I'm using Lawn Fawn's Jet Black ink. Sorry, I had a little moment there. So yes, Lawn Fawn's Jet Black ink. And originally I had chosen the darker brown, but then it didn't really show up very well on that color just because the black on the dark brown. So I selected the lighter brown polka dot paper, which was equally as nice. And I'm just half stamping each image onto there because I know I'm going to cut those wrappers out. And now to start my Copic coloring, which that's why I use the Lawn Fawn ink because it is Copic marker friendly. And I wanted this one to look like a vanilla cupcake. So I used my E50, E51, and E53. And I blended those in, just the cupcake. And then this one is a chocolate cupcake. So I'm using some darker E's for this. And all my caps are on the screen for you to see. And I'm using a triple color combination for blending. And now this is a strawberry topped cupcake today. So I'm going to use some of my RV colors to get a nice like rose color is what I was aiming for, which is again one of my favorite colors is definitely pink. And I thought that this would match the paper pack really well, going with the chocolate and strawberry look. And so I'm bringing in a little bit darker of a color for that dark base, which is R56. And as you can see, what I like to do is shadow map first. So I go ahead with my lightest color, which was in this case the RV32, and I map out everywhere where I'm going to go with that dark color so it starts laying down that the ink, so your paper starts getting a little bit of saturation of color there, and so it makes your blending a little bit easier. And I just take my time and I go back and forth quite a bit. So then I'm going to add the RV34 again. So I started with RV32 as my light, RV34 is my mid-tone, and then I went with an R56 for my dark tone in that. And now we're going into the chocolate cupcake, or the chocolate frosted cupcake. And that was with my favorite combination, which are my E23, 25, and 27. I use these the most. And I also videoed myself finally refilling one of my Copic markers, which was my E23. It wasn't too bad. I didn't make a big mess or anything, so I will probably get that together and put that up within the next couple weeks. And again, I shadow mapped with my E23, which is my lightest color. Then I went in with my E25 and laid on another layer of ink. And then I go in with my E27 and back through all the colors again to even them out and blend. And now I'm just going to fussy cut all of my cupcake wrappers out. I used my Scan and Cut for the cupcake images, but I couldn't get it to read the pattern paper very well with the Scan and Cut, and I'm just not that slick with it. So I thought, this is pretty simple to fussy cut. That's why I left it in the video so you could see that it's really not a hard cut at all. And so I just got that all of those cut. I did an extra one, as you can see, that white wrapper. I wasn't quite sure yet what I was going to do. A lot of times the cards just kind of make themselves. I have the idea, and then as I go along, the card kind of just does its own thing. And that is definitely the case today. Now I pulled out some of my Nuvo drops. The pinkish color is Crystal Drops in Moroccan Red, although, like I said, it looks very pink to me, but whatever, if that's what they want to call it. And then the silver is Crystal Drops in Silver Lining. And then I have Dream Drops and Cloud 9 for that little bit of iridescent. So my thought process behind this was I was trying to make them look like those little edible pearls that people top cakes and cupcakes with. So I was trying to kind of give some dimension to it. So I was working, as you can see, it's been a little while since I've used my Nuvo drops, and so they're kind of clogged. So I just had that little scrap piece of paper on the side so I could test them a little bit as I went. So I'm just adding those all to those little dots that they're already drawn onto the cupcake. And I'm not doing any sort of rhyme or reason for the pattern. I'm just getting them on there, the silver and then the iridescent on the strawberry, and then the silver and the pink on the chocolate. Now for my frames, I was a little bit strategic. I used a couple different Slimline die cuts, one being from Cat Scrappiness, and this is from their Slimline series. And this fit perfectly into the Trinity Stamp Scalloped edge for the Slimline, as you can see. So what I did is I kept that Cat Scrappiness all together, and I did several different die cuts just in some white Nina cardstock. And that way I can have them as frames at a later date, because soon as you take them apart, then it cuts the solid image inside, as you can see next. So now after I did that, I did several of them and I slipped them into the package for later. And then I took off the other one with my wire snips, the largest one on the edge, on the outside edge. And you can see how that now cuts a solid background. So I do that often. I just wanted to show you this, and then I'm going to keep all those, like I said, in that envelope. So I have that. I kept out 2 of the largest ones of the frame to go with my my shaker card today. And that will be the frame on the top, and then that solid piece is the backing. Now, I definitely wanted to be able to use this paper pack as my background paper, but I was also doing a slimline card. So in order to do this, what I did was cut 1/4 inch strips of paper from the 6x6 pad. In order to achieve nice uniform pieces, what I did was slip in that 6x6 piece of paper at the top of the trimmer, and then I just slid it down the 1/4 inch each time. And in order to be paper conservative, I used some of the same patterns that I had already cut out the cupcake wrappers. And now, as you can see, I have a bunch of strips all ready to go to make a slimline card background. So I am going to do it diagonal. I like that look of the diagonal. And I'm noticing that, the edges, the corners, they don't need a big long strip. So I just took a bunch of those and cut them in half. And now I'm going to use some tape runner. And I have lots of animals, so I get a little bit of, animal hair every once in a while. And I'm making sure right now that I'm going directly to the edges, because if not, then I know that it was going to lift off when I went to trim it. And I'm really not doing any sort of pattern. There's no rhyme or reason to how I'm laying down the pieces. I kind of look to make sure that I space out the brown and then the different pinks a little bit. But like I said, I didn't do any sort of uniform pattern, and I like the way that that comes out as the random pattern. And I'm just butting each one up against each other. And then I have this whole little section of strips now adhered together that I can trim off. And I just go right around the edges with some sharp scissors. You could probably do this in a trimmer as well, but I just find it just as easy to trim it right out with a pair of scissors. And there's something satisfying the way that this looks after too. I like how it's all like messy looking, and then poof, it's all nice and crisp and clean along the edges. I like that. So now it's time to work together with my frame. I did cut two of those for more stability. So I'm just going to adhere those together, but I'm just testing right there to make sure that it was going to fit. So I'm just using my precision tip glue, and I'm going to add the frame on top of each other. And again, that's really just to make that piece a little bit more stable, give it a little more thickness. And then I'm going to cut a piece of acetate just slightly smaller than the opening of the frame, and we'll add that on after. Right now I'm just going to add those cupcake bottoms, which look at perfect. I love that, actually. I love the way this look. And I had let the Nuvo drops dry when I was working on the paper background. So those are all dry and ready to go. And then this is when I was still trying to decide, do I do the white? Do I do the pink? But, you know, the pink girl in me, the pink one. So there you go. And then all laid out. And as you can see, this card is definitely going to take on a life of its own because I was planning on using all three cupcakes on it. And then things changed. And there's the acetate going on, just slightly smaller than the frame, and then adhere to the back. And now I'm doubling up my foam tape, and then I'm just going to cut it in half, and that's going to be my edges because that gives it a little bit of dimension for all those shaker bits to fit in there and still move around. And just trimming that down. And I did get a little bit over the edge in some of those, so I have to go back and trim it after. So now I have a bunch of shaker bits and pieces and sequins in my stash, so I'm just adding some of those. This is a little bit of glitter with a little bit of, if you see it up close, it's got like these little pink flecks in it. It's really pretty. And then this is a honeybee. I'll have that linked below. It's a honeybee set that has a lot of browns in it, so I just picked out the colors that I wanted, which were those browns. And then this is Catherine Pooler's new romance sequence mix, and it is absolutely fabulous. Has little iridescent hearts and all sorts of sequins that are different colors. And I just picked out those teal colored ones and set those aside because I didn't want that for these colors, but I kept along with the pinks that went with the background. As you can see now, this is when I had to go back in and trim off some of that foam tape, which was not a big deal. It was nice and easy. And then look at that, we have a beautiful shaker. I absolutely love the way this came out. So this is why I end up ultimately not choosing to use all three cupcakes because I didn't want to cover up that pretty shaker. I wanted everybody to see that. I love the background papers, the pattern that came out, how those browns and those pinks work well together. So I was like, I don't want to cover those up. So this is where I took out the Happy Valentine's Day from the Bouquet of Happiness. And I'm using a Catherine Pooler ink icing on the cake, which is nice and juicy, and it's a deep brown, like chocolatey color. And so now, because I didn't want to cover up the shaker, I had to decide what to do. So what I did was I stamped out some more treats from the Sprinkled with Love set, the cookies, and then the little heart shaped, I call it a whoopie pie. I'm from Maine, or live in Maine, and we, believe in whoopie pies. I will talk a little bit more about that after. But right now I wanted this frame to match my coloring. So I'm using my RV34, which was that mid-tone, and just going around the edges, and that will make that match perfectly. So it's a nice coordinated frame. And I do that quite often with my Copic markers so I can have that consistency in my card. And so now we had to go ahead and I had to color up all of these extra treats. So I wanted these cookies to be kind of a cross in between the vanilla looking cupcake and then the chocolate cupcake, and nice golden brown cookies. And yes, this did make me super hungry doing this, but luckily I had a daughter that had a birthday this week, so we had lots of sweet treats, which since the whole quarantine thing, I have definitely eaten a lot more sweet treats than I should be, but well, whatever. Oh, we will figure that out after Valentine's Day, right? So I'm using my E51 to shadow mark, and then I'm going in with a E53, especially around those edges. I'm trying to get those nice browned golden edges going on with the cookies. And back in with that E51, and then a little E35 again on those edges to darken them up and make like they look like they're nice golden cookies. Then we're going to add those chocolate chips with my favorite combination of E23, E25, and E27. And I believe that these look good enough to eat now. And as you can see, it was just a little bit of testing of my coloring on the edges. I do that often too to see which colors that match well together. And now this is my whoopie pie. So I live in Maine now. I live in northern Maine. I live north of Bangor, Maine, which if anybody is familiar with Maine at all, that is very north. Yes, so we're just about in Canada. And anyway, the whoopie pie was originated in Bangor, Maine. And that's where we do go for like our mall or any sort of shopping. We were just there over the weekend for my daughter's birthday. We did a little bit of shopping and that sort of thing, went out to eat. But anyway, so yes, Bangor, Maine is where the whoopie pie originated. And so I wanted this to kind of look like a whoopie pie, which is the typical one has a cream filling and a dark cakey like consistency. So this is my whoopie pie. Now I'm going to add those sprinkles back in. I was semi careful with those little hearts and the sprinkles as I was coloring, but I knew that I was going to go back with some sort of pen and fill those in. So I wasn't super worried about if any of my alcohol ink from the Copics got onto those. So now I'm just using some jelly roll pens in a silver and a pink and going back and working on those sprinkles. I actually used one called a pink star at first, but then it turned out that it looked just like the silver anyway, so I just went to use the silver and the other pink. Now I have all my elements. I cut out my Happy Valentine's Day with my honeybee banners, which is totally my go-to for my sentiments. And then I stamped out You Bake Me Happy and that same icing on the cake Catherine Pooler ink. And then I fussy cut around the edges of that. And now I'm trying to figure out how I should lay this out so I get the maximum amount of that shaker showing through. And I wanted to back this sentiment up with the same color that I did the scallop frame. So I grabbed out the RV34 again and just laid down some ink on a scrap piece of paper. As you can see, nothing fancy. I'm just laying down that ink, making sure it fits the You Bake Me Happy sentiment. And I'm just going to glue that down right on top of where I laid down the ink on that scrap piece of paper. And then I'm going to fussy cut right around the edge, just leaving about 1/8 of an inch all around. Again, I'm not perfect with this, but it looks fine. So you can fussy cut and make it all work. And now I'm just going to adhere our shaker card to the bottom of the base or of the bottom panel, that scalloped edge. And then go ahead and add all of our elements. The cute little whoopie pie right in the corner. And then I'm down to just one cupcake that I'm going to add on to this particular card. And the golden cookies that I want to eat. And then my sentiment, You Baked Me Happy. And then I'm considering my Happy Valentine's Day my sub-sentiment. And I just add a little weight to that. So I just grab whatever's on my desk to add a little weight to those elements to keep them down when the glue is drying. And I'm still trying to figure out how to get the maximum amount of the shaker card. So I decided to pop this up right at the bottom in between those two, the cookie and the whoopie pie. And there we go. We can see all those little shaker bits in there. I just had to straighten out that little sentiment and I love it. So I just got a card base 9x4. So I cut a 9x8 piece and then I scored it at the 4-inch mark. That's how I like to do my slimline cards. That's the size that I like to add a little bit more real estate. And then just added that up and that really popped. Honestly, I love this. Like I said, I didn't have the plan, but the plan really came together. And this is really one of my ultimate favorite cards that I've made. So I'm happy. So thank you so much for stopping in with me today and visiting. Thanks to Not Too Shabby for having me on your team. I'm super excited to be representing you and your wonderful projects. And I kept those cupcakes and the extra cookies and stuff that I did. And I will have a short video out also this week that has another card along the same idea of the one that we just saw today. So thanks everybody. I appreciate you stopping in. If you are not a subscriber, I'd appreciate you clicking that button. I'll have products listed below. Make sure that you stop by the Not Too Shabby shop. It is a good one-stop shopping. It has their original content, plus a lot of my favorite companies are there as well. Thanks everybody. Happy crafting!